Hi, thanks Fadil for the explanation and introduction, and thanks Sarah and Jason for the informative insights and slides beforehand. So after the heavy content of financial planning, and that actually pretty much stresses me out because I think I'm in the midst of doing that as well. So I'm going to talk a little bit of another type of investment. So this type of investment is actually on our cognitive health. And since we are talking with regards to World Mental Health Day, so this is something that is related. So I'm not sure whether you can see the link between cognitive health as well as mental health, but this is something that is actually very, very closely related. Okay, I'm going to go a bit quicker, but if you have any questions later on, feel free to ask me. So yeah, today I'm going to talk a little bit about depression and dementia, but in particular about the topic of dementia and cognitive health. Actually, the two are very, very closely related. How? We have learned that actually about 21% of those who have ongoing depressive symptoms over time will actually develop dementia. So this is something. Depression can be a chronic condition, and this is something that can develop into a more severe condition, which is dementia in the future. And among those who actually live with dementia, about 4 in 10 actually experience symptoms of depression and also can develop the disorder itself, major depressive disorder. So it's something that we have to look out for very, very early on. So there is a myth that maybe for dementia it's something that you get when you are older, when you are 70s, 80s, and so forth. But that's actually not necessarily so. We have seen a lot of cases of young onset dementia on the rise recently. I'm going to talk a little bit more about that soon. But yeah, given this link, I hope that we can see the importance and the urgency to actually invest in our mental health as well as cognitive health. And I'm going to talk a bit about how. So why should we care? Actually, one is affected with dementia every 3 seconds worldwide, and the decline actually starts very, very early and starts very small. So when you get diagnosed with dementia at the age of 70s, or late 60s or 80s, actually it doesn't happen overnight. The decline starts really early, like even 10 years before or 15 years before. So studies have shown that changes in the brain start very early, and these are not going to be addressed unless you detect them early on. Secondly, I mean, other than that, once you get the condition, once your cognitive health is compromised, actually the impact on quality of life and functioning can be quite great. Your independence, your autonomy can be compromised. Especially, we were just talking about retirement with Jason, and in the golden years, you still would like to have a bit more independence and autonomy, freedom to go do things that you like, and those are not possible when you are diagnosed with dementia and you live with the condition in a severe state. Healthcare cost is also very high, because once you get to a certain stage when you're diagnosed with dementia, you actually require long-term and intensive care. So there has been a study to identify that the overall cost of providing care for people with dementia can be higher than other chronic illnesses care like diabetes care, and all that. That is kind of like also a big national concern in Singapore, but actually dementia care cost is also very high. So that's something that, even at the moment we are not planning for it. This may affect us in the future. Okay, and I want to understand from you as well. So whether you know what dementia symptoms are all about, and whether you know that it's not just about being forgetful. So you can ask me later if you have more questions about the symptoms. But basically, if you're just forgetting things once in a while, losing items once in a while, that can be common parts of aging. But otherwise, other cognitive functions may start getting affected if you notice that it's getting difficult to make decisions. So what we call executive function can include decision making, reasoning, orientation. So if all these start to be affected, you start to lose your way a bit more often. Very difficult to pay attention to things, language issues, visual spatial perception is also part of brain function. So for example, you may fall easily and stuff like that. So all this may mean that you may develop a more severe cognitive impairment that is worth looking into. At some point when the dementia progresses, actually the activities of daily living gets affected as well. For example, you may start to not be able to, wash yourself, bathe yourself, feed, dress, toileting, going from one places to another, and all that. So those also can get affected. Other bodily functions in the severe state, in the last stage of dementia, you may have difficulty comprehending and formulating language. You know that this is a water bottle in your brain, but you can't say it out. You don't know what the word is, or you don't even know that this is a water bottle. So you don't even recognize a toilet bowl, for example. So those what we call inability to recognize objects. So that may also happen in the last stage of dementia, as well as difficulty swallowing. Typical scenario of dementia diagnosis in Singapore. This is coming from my experience of having worked with a lot of people with dementia in the community as well as in the nursing home. A lot of people have signs and symptoms undiagnosed at the early days. The signs are undetected, and once they get a bit more severe, then they start paying attention. The diagnostic process is also not very straightforward sometimes, so it can take time to really understand what's going on. And even during that time, you also may decline further. And typically once there is a confirmed diagnosis that, okay, this is dementia, that you get a diagnosis of dementia, can be Alzheimer's disease, vascular dementia, and so forth. But once you get that, typically the family members get very protective. You get disengaged. You are typically terminated from work. You are typically not allowed to go out by yourself, we'll drive you around, we'll accompany you. You don't really have much freedoms to do a lot of the things that you did in the past that you used to do. And this actually is accompanied by the significant progressive decline. You can start noticing that the decline is getting a bit more apparent. And by doing this, actually, it's a vicious cycle, because once you stop working, once you just stay at home and watch TV passively, you don't really talk to a lot of people, your mental health is at risk. And this is actually when depression can develop. Depressive symptoms may appear and it may get worse. And once you get depressed, you lose even more motivation to do anything else, and you get even more disengaged. So it becomes a vicious cycle. And once you are in this state for a period of time, then you typically will require intensive care, for example, by a domestic helper, or at some point, going to a daycare or a nursing home, which is a long-term residential care. So what can we do? So we really cannot start early enough to invest in mental and cognitive health. So just like financial planning, it takes a long time to actually get ready and prepare for this. So first thing first, very easy, maintaining vascular health, being physically active, eat healthily, avoid smoking, drink less alcohol, aim for sleep quality. The three highs, high blood pressure, high blood sugar, high cholesterol, these typically lead to poor vascular health that can actually result in stroke. So once you get a stroke attack, that typically leads to the onset of dementia symptoms, because stroke affects functioning of the brain, and that's one type of dementia, which is what we call vascular dementia. Exercise the mind. When I say exercise the mind, it's not just puzzle or Sudoku, which is actually great, but that's something that there are other things that you can do on top of that. So you can also learn something new. even as you are older. Actually, even more when you're older, you have to learn something new, learn a new language, pick up a new hobby, do things outside your comfort zone, which is very, very important. Play strategy games. You can play with your son, your daughter, your spouse, grandchildren, friends, family gatherings. You can create a purposeful schedule to have something to look forward to throughout the month, throughout the weeks. It's always good to plan for things so that you have, okay, I'm looking forward to that. So by the time comes, you actually want to do that. But when you have an empty calendar, you don't have anything much to do, nothing planned, your motivation level typically goes down. And that is also another cycle. When you don't feel like doing anything, there's no purpose, there's no meaning, then signs of low mood and depressive signs can also come in as well. Try to break convention on a day-to-day basis, like eating with your non-dominant hand, taking a new route home. This is quite interesting. This is quite, an easy thing to do, but maybe we don't always do it. Change your MRT route, change your bus route, change your driving route so that you break away from that autopilot mode that you typically find yourself in. Handwrite notes instead of just typing on the phone, as well as instead of just typing work stuff on the computer and stuff. Once in a while, do handwrite notes and observe for yourself how it feels, because when I try to handwrite notes nowadays, I'm quite surprised by how ugly my handwriting has become. It's really disorderly. There's no structure, and it takes a while for me to get the hang of it, to start writing well again, and that exercises certain parts of the brain as well. So the key message here is, when you don't do something, when you don't use certain capability or abilities, you may lose it if you don't use it for a prolonged period of time. This is very important, maintaining social connection. So one of the key thing about people with dementia that I've come across is they are typically quite socially isolated. They don't have a lot of friends. They don't have a lot of people that they hang out with or check in with, or communicate with on a regular basis. So this is something very very I hope very easy to do, but also something that is very important. Old friends are great because you can revisit things that you used to do in the past, shared experiences. Then it also activates and takes certain part of the brain, and you can talk about those. You can also meet new people of different ages and profile. Talk to kids, talk to your kids' friends, talks to a new neighbor, talk to, I don't know, a dog owner, or the cleaning auntie. Just talk to different people of different topics, and this actually exercises the brain as well to really find ways to maintain communications and create conversation. Thirdly, having meaningful conversation. So sometimes we engage in small talks, but once in a while, it's very important to really go deep and dig into your interests and passion, and have something that you are very motivated to talk about. So something meaningful, something relevant to you. And this actually activates different parts of the brain and sometimes your body as well, because when you're excited, it shows in the body. And this is something that you can have with your spouse, your co-workers, your friends. Engaging in discussion. So after watching TV, reading the news, don't just switch off. You can talk about it with your wife. You can talk about it with your husband. You can ask your kids about it. Discussion also is a different forms of mental exercise. Instead of just passively receiving information from the TV, but you're actually processing what happens, what you have just seen, what you saw, and then you're expressing it out to other people to engage in conversation. So that's also a great way to do that. I think also another thing is, once actually you get certain signs or you identify certain signs in other people or in yourself, actually you should express the need that somebody needs to get diagnosed, either for yourself, your spouse, your friends. Typically they are the early spotters of these signs, family, friends, and colleagues. You may not recognize in yourself, or you may be in denial, you are scared, and that's understandable. But if somebody else brings up the point like, hey, maybe you should get checked out and diagnosed, or let's see what's happening, that typically is a good advice, to get diagnosed early if in case something needs to be attended to. Why do you need to get diagnosed early? As I mentioned earlier, the symptoms starts really early. Then it actually allows early intervention, engagement, and services. There are more services available if you are still able to do a lot of things. It also allows ample time for future planning. So planning for important things like finances, medical decisions, planning for your mental health, like where do you want to live, what do you want to do in the event if you lose capacity in doing things, where do you want to be. So all this can be planned early. So in the event that somebody is really diagnosed with dementia, once a loved one is diagnosed, what's next? So this is kind of like the last bit of it. When we see people with dementia, we may see like people, I'm not sure what you think about dementia, but sometimes people say, oh, it's crazy or just forgetful, stubborn, annoying. We don't always see past the conditions, but what we need to do is really focus on the person and focus on the abilities of the person. Every person living with dementia is just like anybody else. They also have the same psychological needs that we all do as well. And these include being occupied, having attachment, meaning having relationship with others, having a sense of identity, a sense of inclusion, being part of the group, not being excluded, and having comfort. It could be emotional and physical comfort. So we always try to understand what are the needs and what are the unmet needs that the person have. If let's say there's a bit of challenge with the person, so we try to understand what can we do to meet the needs better. So instead of just seeing the condition, oh my God, she's so stubborn, or she keeps repeating herself and stuff like that. And advocating for active engagement, I cannot emphasize this enough. The more they are actively engaged, the more they do things, the more the different faculties are exercised and stimulated. And also focus on relationship building. What I mean by this is sometimes you want to do something with your loved one, with people with dementia. Let's do a puzzle together, or let's do this together, but they don't want to do it. I don't want to do it. Maybe they don't feel like it, and you get frustrated. I'm trying, but you're not trying. But you know what matters? It's not about the puzzle. What matters is actually that you try to connect with the person, and actually it's about the relationship. If the person just want to sit down with you and talk, or sit and have a cup of tea, that's what matters. Focus on the relationship, building the pleasant experiences and positive emotion. So that will do a lot more than having to do a puzzle that actually is not exciting for him or her. So I'm just going to leave you with a quote here. People with dementia may forget your name, but they never forget how you make them feel. So again, very, very strong emphasis on the emotions that we create for them, so the environment that we create for them. So if you have any questions about people with dementia, or how to intervene early, or any signs, or managing behavior challenges and all that, you can email me at my email address, diankarnina@gmail.com. You can also find me at the therapy platform as well. So yeah, that's all from me at the moment. So back to you, Fadil.
Thank you, Dian. That was certainly very insightful. If you have any questions for Dian, like she mentioned, or any of the speakers, I will encourage you to submit them on the chat box on the right,